there's a positive regard that I have to what they're explaining. I listen to how they learned, where they're coming from. So I'm an active learner, but I also know that when I learn something, I try and implement it.
Wits and Weights community, welcome to another episode of the Wits and Weights podcast. My guest today, Allan Friedman, is a member of the Wits and Weights community and one-on-one coaching client of mine who's gone through his own physical and mental transformation in our time together. He has a passion for sharing knowledge, engaging with fellow health and fitness enthusiasts, and always being of service. Today, we'll explore his early influences in nutrition and fitness, his personal connection to health and well-being, and how his professional background informed his fitness journey. Allan will share how he's overcome resistance, developed a positive attitude toward fitness, transitioned from emotional to mindful eating, and managed nutrition as a bariatric patient. We'll also delve into the challenges we've tackled together and the coaching process. Allan will share his advice on getting started, how he maintains his unwavering positivity and passion throughout his fitness journey. Allan Friedman was a school psychologist for over 30 years, skilled in developmental psychology, school psychology, and mindfulness training. In the fitness industry, he loved being a spinning instructor for over 12 years. He maintains a Yoga Instructor Certification with additional certification in trauma-sensitive yoga. Allan has always been interested in physical and emotional wellness and how we develop throughout our lifespan. He's an active learner and strives to create action plans that address his purpose and priorities. Allan cherishes life and wishes to bring a passionate and supportive, positive vibe to others. Allan, we finally made it happen. So welcome to the
Yes,
show, man.
here we are. Here we are. Wow, I'm listening to that intro and I'm digging in deep as we'll find out on this podcast. Sometimes I just listen to things and I just go deep into it and it's like, wow, these are important points. So I thank you very much, Philip, first of all, for your commitment and your dedication to the fitness industry, to the health industry, and your passion, your dedication, and your energy um, is absolutely incredible. And goes, it doesn't go unnoticed. It's there.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, Allan. I think, we attract each other into our world too, right? So let's not
Hmm.
discount that. I mean, you and I probably attracted to each other in some way out there because we are both positive, optimistic type people. At least that's how
Right,
I identify. And
right.
so it kind of worked out. And the more we do this and have these conversations, and the people listening can get motivated and fired up by that energy and what you have
Right.
to share.
You mentioned something right off the cuff. I'll just say that what
Sure.
I was attracted to your community was your wisdom, was your questioning. Um, on a different group, you asked these intelligent questions. I said, "Wow!" I said, "This guy really gets the science. He gets the research." And that's when I joined your Facebook group that day.
Cool, man. Yeah, standing on the shoulders of giants, right? As they say.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
I
That's
can
right.
accept a compliment, and I also want to pay it back to all the people that I have to thank for getting here
Yes.
as well. So,
Okay.
all
Let's
right,
get started.
let's get started. So I wanna learn a little bit more about maybe some things that even I haven't learned about you. Starting from your background, you mentioned before that your grandfather and also Jack LaLanne, these are some of your early influences on your interest in nutrition and fitness. So
Yeah,
can you
yeah,
share about how these individuals or others have shaped your perspective then? They've spurred this passion you have.
yeah. My grandfather was, as my aunt would call him, a nature boy. You know, he was an Eagle Scoutmaster. He lost his father when he was young due to the influenza
Mm,
epidemic. So he wanted to pay back, and he dedicated himself to the boys in the community in Brooklyn where he lived. So that was his impetus. For my mother said that why he wanted to be an Eagle Scout. They taught me the phrases, man. Like, Alan, there's not a cloud in the sky. Look how blue the sky is. He taught me to go for a hike. He taught me about hiking. He taught me about gardening. A couple of years before he passed away, he taught me how to make a vegetable garden. He taught me how to transplant, do all the kinds of gardening. And he passed away when I was 11 years old. Um, so it was a sudden loss, tragic loss. And then let's move along to my adolescent years. When you're into your body. So a cousin of mine said, Alan, look what I have. I have these 12 packets, 10 or 12 packets of exercise programs, and they would do it yourself, Jack LaLanne, in your bedroom.
that's funny.
So I remember, so my favorite memories of that when I was 15 years old was doing tricep dips on my desk chair,
Okay.
and then going downstairs and having cottage cheese. It's like, so I remember doing the
Oh, so you
program.
already knew you had to get protein even back
That's
then.
right, exactly, yeah,
Okay.
and, I always right. So I remember doing leg raises, I remember doing, core work, all this stuff in my bedroom, and I remember telling my mom, "Ma, I need cottage cheese." So so that goes back when I was 15, 16 years old,
Now wait,
and then
was this like Arnold Schwarzenegger where he could just envision his muscles growing?
no,
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 okay.
I was always fighting with I was always fighting with being overweight.
Okay. Okay,
I've
that's important
always
to know. Yeah.
so yeah, so I didn't I always was, on the chunkier side,
Mhm.
um, and so it was kind of like my way of kind of taking care of myself. I wasn't into sports, team sports necessarily, although I did love riding my bike, and I liked other, individual type sports, but I was not a team sport, person.
Okay. So cool. So now, fat did was there a gap in there? So that was when you were a kid, and then doing the tricep extensions on the chair, and then eating the cottage cheese. I mean, where take us now to today.
Oh man! So today there's a mantra. We're gonna skip. So today, so there was a time, where I gained a lot of weight. Um, I just gained a lot of weight, when I was having kids. That became daddy, and forget about me. It's all about taking care of kids and working and trying to keep the budget going and things of that sort. So I ended up gaining a lot of weight. At one point, I had a doctor who told me that if I wanted to see my grandkids, I have to lose weight.
Mhm.
This was in my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s.
Okay, that's pretty young, right, to be told that.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
you're saying your family, your situation was that you're a very giving guy. I know that about you. So you put others before you. Is
Always,
what it
yes,
sounds like. Yep. Okay.
yes.
Mhm.
So what happened was, and this is kind of like moving along my journey here. So my grandmother, before she passed away, I used to take care of her, when she was sick a little bit, and she said to me, Alan, she goes, "You have to take care of yourself because no one else will." And she saw a little bit that I was a little, she was concerned. So I did. I did. So every time, I'm telling you, every time I go to the gym, even to this day, to this year, so let's bridge the gap all these years, I say to myself, Alan, take care of yourself.
Because
Why
no
am
one
I,
else will. Yeah.
because, well, no one else, it's up to me. Who else is going to lift the weights?
Yeah.
Who,
Yeah.
who else is going to go for a walk?
Exactly.
I have to have my internal locus of control and make sure that I do what I need to do for myself. There's a saying that I have, um, and it's also part of my motivation, Philip. Um, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? If I'm not for myself, or if I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?
Hmm.
So it's a focus on myself or ourselves as individuals, that we have important work to do in this world.
Hmm.
We have to take care of ourselves, and we have important work to do. However, it's not just about us.
Right.
If we're only for ourselves, what are we? We don't exist in a vacuum. So therefore, it's a call to action to other people, other commitments, other obligations, other acts of kindness that we do in this world. Reaching out. Well, in the context of also, I wouldn't say juxtaposition. I like to use Venn diagrams. So I
Mhm.
think there's an intersection between ourselves and the community, and plus a call to action. Because just thinking about it and wondering and diarying and writing down what you're grateful or appreciative of every morning is fine, but we need to act on what's important to us.
Mm.
And in my situation, bringing it back backwards, back to the beginning, is that we need to take care of ourselves in order to take care of others as well. You know,
Yeah. No, that we should sit with that concept, right? Because there's so much on social media and discussion about self-love, self-worth, body image, body positivity, all these things, and the idea that pursuing some level of fitness or even aesthetics or whatever the goal is somehow maybe a selfish pursuit, when what you're saying is that what drives us is our mission in the world, others, our family, the people who care about us, and who we want to be of service of. And thus, don't we want to be our best selves physically and mentally to make that happen and accomplish that mission, right? That's what we're saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and your
I mean,
quote, your mantra reminds me that I think Epictetus has a quote I use all the time as well, very similar of like, when are you going to demand the best for yourself? Because nobody else is going to do it.
right,
So when are you going to
exactly.
demand the
Right,
best?
right.
Yeah, so you have this deep personal connection with health and well-being. It's not just about lifting weights, right? It's not just about aesthetics. You've gone through a long trajectory of emotions, of physical states, of your relationships with others over the decades. So, how does that play in, and how do you implement your mantra to stay consistent? Like, it's nice to say it,
Yeah.
but how do you do that?
I want to initially say that it's meditative. I always tell my trainers and my friends at the gym that lifting weights and is meditative. Even high intensity interval training is meditative because when you go through the steps of the intensity before you bring it back down again, you have to understand where you're at. You need feedback. You need a heart rate monitor, perhaps, for some objective information. But you also have to realize what's happening to your body, your breath, your brain, your state of being as you move through everything. And lifting weights is really about internal feedback, mind first, but also internal feedback. So every time I'm lifting weights, whatever I'm doing in the gym, whatever it is, there's a brace, there's a breath, and then there's an internal locus of focus. Um, and 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 that's kind of that. But I also feel that it's habit. It's the habits I've created to act as a structure, a foundation for what I need to do. Because getting to the gym and for a walk, going for a walk, going to buy the proper groceries at a grocery
Mhm.
store,
Mhm.
right? The whole ball of wax, Philip.
Mhm.
Um, there has to be an underlying structure that you work from, that people work from, and I think that really helps me.
You just hit on 2 so powerful concepts, just kind of, uh, lightly. What am I trying to say? Like, not flippantly. You just mentioned them, and to me, they were very powerful. The first one is that lifting weights is meditative. I've
Yes.
actually never heard it put that way by anybody, and you really struck a chord with me with that, because I'm the kind of guy who I'm very rational, very logical. To me, it's like lift weights, get a result, do this, get a result. And I don't really meditate. I don't do a lot of breath work and stuff, even though I've tried. It's just not ingrained in my habits like it
Right,
could
right,
or should be. Um, but I do lift weights and I do heavy squats. And I know that process when I turn off the music, no one's there. It's just me because I work out at home. So it's very meditative.
mhm,
And I'm thinking of a cue and I'm thinking of my breath and I feel my abs pressing on the belt and I feel the force going straight down into my heels through my squat shoes, and I'm looking at the position with me relative to all of that, like you're saying, is a high level of awareness and internal focus. And then all you're trying to do is go down and up, but it's this whole mindset thing. I love that because we can identify with people who love lifting weights and say, you are engaging in a form of meditation when you do that. Um, that's very powerful. That's very powerful because it's really about resilience and the resilience you get from that. And then you tied it to habits, which is a whole separate thing, right? Where
yes, yeah.
if you don't have the habits yet, how do you get those habits, Alan? Like, where should someone start? That's the trick, right?
Pen and paper.
Okay.
Pen and paper. That's how I started. What do I need to do? Whiteboard or pen and paper or notes on your phone. You don't need a fancy app, although there's a couple of great apps for habits. Um, it's kind of also digging in deep, seeing what we need in the kitchen, in our action steps to get us to where we need to go. And one thing I've learned lately, since I've already established habits, is habit stacking.
Hmm.
I think that's amazing. So you might say, how do I go for a walk? Well, what do I like to do that I could pair with going for a walk? In my case, it's podcasts. All right. When I'm behind in my podcast, it's because I'm not walking my steps in the park.
Oh, that's actually a great point, Alan. You just turned it around. Yet another powerful thing, because
That's
I know we've
yeah,
talked I know we've talked about habit stacking a few times, but
yeah.
when my feed gets really long, I'm like, "Why is it long?" Oh, because I took a deload week this week and I wasn't lifting or walking as much.
There you go.
So
There
maybe I
you
should
go.
just go for an extra walk, catch
That's
up on
right.
my podcast. You're right. It's a great
That's
one.
right.
Yeah.
So it's about it's all about of just building up, one habit at a time, one step at a time. Maybe it's getting your gym clothes together. Maybe it's first buying a nice shirt for the gym,
Mm.
or a pair of shorts that you are dedicated. You may have two shirts and two shorts that you dedicate for working out. Um, you have a protein. You have your, you if you're mindful of nutrition, you have your nutrition set. Um, you
The
know,
these are good techniques. I wanna stop there again. You're talking about, like, having things you enjoy, or almost like a little reward or celebratory thing that gets you going, right? It could be that new shirt, a new piece of equipment. You don't always have to buy stuff and spend
right.
money, but, even you mentioned a protein bar. Like, if there's a protein bar you like versus one you don't, that can make a difference in having it, right? You also mentioned the reminders on your phone. I need more selenium, so I added a habit that says eat Brazil nuts every day
Yes.
at 11 AM. You know what I mean? I just add it as a
Uh,
reminder, and it sticks there in red until I do it, right?
yeah. My question to you, Philip, is how many?
2. I just eat
Yep.
2 Brazil
Yep.
nuts.
That's
Yep,
it. Yep. Right. Right.
that's all you need.
I
Because
love it.
they are a lot of calories too, so you gotta
I
balance it.
love it. I love it. I
Yeah, that's
love it.
funny.
But
Um,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm interrupting you on purpose because the things you're saying are really valuable for the listener to just
Hmm.
dwell on. And me too, right? I'm part of this podcast is I'm learning, and then the
Right.
listener's learning with me.
Right. One
Did
thing
you
I'd
wanna
like
add
to,
any more on that? Because I have
yeah,
other
yeah.
things we can get into.
There's one more thing also I'd like to
Yeah.
add to this. Accessibility.
Okay.
Things need to be accessibility. If things are hidden or in a room you don't go to or in a drawer that's not visible, there's a barrier between you and the action step or the habit. So I have my protein powders, my creatine. Like I have a little area which used to have a Keurig. The Keurig moved away. So in the place of the Keurig, I have my proteins, my all my supplements that I pre-make ahead of time. So in the morning, I just have to dump a little Rubbermaid, um, recipe of all my powders, dump it into a shaker cup, add
Mhm.
water, and I'm out.
There you go.
So it's a matter of accessibility also.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Accessibility, which is the opposite of resistance or opposite of a barrier.
Yes,
Yeah. No, no,
yes.
don't worry. We don't have to segue into that
No,
one.
no,
I'm just
no, that's
thinking of
great.
that,
It's a
right?
great way. Yeah,
It
it's a
is,
great
it
way
is.
to put it. Right. There's less resistance
Yeah.
between your goal or your habit and what you need to do.
Yeah,
And there's
I was just listening to, Darlene Marshall. She was on the show. I'm
yes.
not sure. I think I'm not sure if it'll be out by the time this one comes out.
Uh,
But she taught her latest episode was about micro habits, the idea that you don't have to have a habit every day. You can modularize your habits. And
mhm,
you just made me think of another concept related to that of time-based habits. In other words, if you have a lot more energy in the morning to do something, use that energy to prepare yourself for the habits when you normally wouldn't. So
yes.
if you for me, that used to be when I would go to the gym, I would in the afternoon, I'd prep my gym bag. I'd prep all my stuff. I'd prep my workouts because I had all this energy. And then in the morning when it's 5 a.m. and I'm dragging myself out of bed, I'm like, well, it'd be more work to put all that away than to just go to the gym. So I'm just going to go to the gym. Really good stuff, man. I didn't know we'd get into whole habit strategies here, but this is good.
It's part of the ball of
It's good.
wax.
It
It
is.
really is.
It
Philip,
is.
we're talking about my progress. We're talking about what I dig into. And
Yep.
these are the things that I dig into that help me have success in what I'm doing, or mostly success. Every day is not perfect.
No, and it's not going to be, and that's cool
Yeah.
though. Every
So
day's
let's
a new day.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's hear what else would you like to discuss?
Well, I do want to connect your background as a school psychologist to your understanding of psychology in general, right? Developmental psychology, which is its own niche there, and mindfulness training. So you have this interesting background. How does all that contribute to your approach today?
I think My training in psychology in my profession has taught me to honor the individuals in front of me. When I have a student across from me at the table, I have to look at, I don't want to get specific necessarily, but I look at who they are as a person. I look at who, for lack of a better word, I just say there's a soul sitting across from me. Whatever this student is involved with or needs help with or whatever, what can I be of service? What can I do to reach this individual student? So I've learned to initially have an unconditional positive regard. And I also have used, well, that's one thing. And also developmentally, what does a student need? There was an incident a long time ago where a principal was having difficulty with a student. I looked at the student, and within a minute, the student was calmer, more relaxed, and was able to, principal was able to work with what she needed to do in terms of parents or whatever. And she said, Alan, how did you do that? I said, I assessed what the student needed developmentally. What is a 6-year-old need? What does a 4-year-old need? What does a 10-year-old need? What does a 15-year-old need? Or an 18-year-old? What's going on in their developmental stages that they need that I could help them with? So this is kind of like jumping around umbrella points, so to speak, because there are so many umbrellas and major points that I can point to answer your question. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
but
bring it back to your if you just had to sum up your philosophy today,
right,
right, between this positive, unconditional positive regard, understanding what people really need. People are individuals that have unique needs that maybe very deep down inside them, who knows? And then the mindfulness training,
right.
how does that all bring us to where you
So
are?
mindfulness training is amazing. Um, it stemmed out of my yoga background.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that my work in psychology evolved a little bit more for mindfulness, stress reduction, meditative breath work. So I often did um, different types of breathing techniques with my students who were in a state of anxiety.
Mm.
If fellow coworkers needed something, um, I was not there to work with, to get, they, but I think, um, breath work is very powerful. I used to go into the chorus room in the music department and do breath work meditation with the choral students so they could access their breath and understand their breath a little more than when they sing, and pastoral things and things of that sort. So there's a whole blend. It's called being eclectic. I love being eclectic and having different tools to use for different reasons, in
Yeah,
different
yeah.
times. So I think, I just think that we all need to dig into ourselves a little bit, um, and and understand and have a focus. One thing that I've also learned is that we have to access our parasympathetic nervous system. We're always fight and flight. It's very easy to be flight and fight. So what yoga does and breath work does is it relaxes your mind from your body up. So the actual vagus nerve, the vagal nerve that goes into your abdomen, the innervation of that causes a relaxed state. And that's how breath work works. That's how yoga works. Um, so we could be very working hard on our mats in yoga, but at the same time, we develop a relaxed state because we're working the nervous system in such a way that we're able to kind of settle in. So that's kind of, anti-anxiety, um, mindfulness, teachers use mindfulness in the classroom. There are so many techniques for teachers to develop a common denominator of atmosphere and
Mm,
vibe in a classroom by starting off with a mindfulness exercise.
mm.
Shuts off the world, the kids get inner focused, and they're able to learn a little bit. So education and mindfulness is huge. There's some amazing psychologists who have done work on mindfulness and education, um, and that's research and practice is ongoing.
And I'm just letting you talk, Alan, because you are relaxing me right now with your seriously, you could just I'm like, "This is good. I'm just gonna use this
Have some
podcast
coffee.
time for my own, mindfulness with Allan Friedman,
Yeah,
social hour here." Just seriously, there's
yeah,
something to be said about even
yeah,
even connecting with somebody. I get the sense that that
yeah,
probably relaxes
yeah,
us to some
yeah.
some level here. Yeah.
Phil, I want to say something. I remember being in Cut Bank, Montana,
Okay. Cut
and I
back?
w-
Yeah.
Cut Bank,
Cut
Montana.
bank.
Right,
Okay.
right. I was going to Glacier National. It's on Route 2 in Montana, and I remember going to an auto parts store. Needed a new battery for something, and the owner's wife was telling me about her son. And I said to myself, you see, no matter where we are, no matter what where we are, whether we're in New York, Montana, could be other countries, kids need the same thing.
Mm,
Developmentally, so this is developmentally, there are some certain basics that people need, whether we're an infant or whether we're 80 years old.
mhm.
It's just their basic. We could talk about Maslow. We could talk
Sure.
about so many other things, but that was it. I think that's pretty much it. It's a knowing that um, people have different requirements, different temperaments, um, and there are ways to work with people. And in the gym, the same thing. We have friends. I hang out with people in the gym, and there's a certain vibe, and people tend to kind of understand where they're at. So a lot of people are doing the meditative work, like you said, Philip, without even calling it meditation.
Yeah. So we've touched on the idea of attacking resistance, of eliminating barriers. But you've struggled like many of us. You had periods in your life where you struggled with physical fitness, right? With your body, with eating, emotional eating, things like that. Um, what is it that potentially was missing at the time that you have found, or maybe was there and you just weren't using, or what could have helped that person that now you're finding could help others?
That is a great question, which is going to lead me into some medical history.
Okay, do it if you're comfortable
Um,
with it. Yeah.
sure. Wow. I've always eaten healthy, always, but I ate a lot. You know.
That
Let's talk.
stop right there. Stop right there. Okay,
Yeah.
let's words mean things. Words
Yes.
mean things, and I want people to understand, right? That you can, and the word, even the word healthy is has got some label. What am I trying to say? Some bias to it, depending on the context.
Yeah, I
So when you
hear
say
you.
eating healthy, I surmise you mean like eating whole foods, not eating too much processed foods, maybe not alcohol, whatever. But you were just eating too many calories. So totally possible, which means you could eat healthy, have too much. You could also eat not so healthy, but maintain the caloric balance you need. There's all combinations of this,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're possible. Yeah.
There's one time I came home from school and I mindlessly took some chocolate chips, melted them in the microwave, mixed them in with peanut butter, and started eating the peanut butter and chocolate mix.
Okay.
I had a very hard day, and and then I stopped myself. I looked at what I was doing, and I said, "Why am I eating this? What am I doing here?" And this was also during a weight loss phase. This was also when I was working on my weight, long time, a
Mhm.
while ago. And I said, "You know what? Eating is meditative. I'm not thinking about it. but I'm engaging in a behavior that's trying to calm myself down. And I just said, now that I understand that, I have to do something else. I can't be mixing peanut butter and chocolate chips.
Oh my God, Alan, really, you're connecting so many dots here. I don't know if you realize that because we were talking about how exercise or squats or whatever were meditative, almost like you're in a trance is another word maybe. Because I talked to another guy who talked about self hypnosis and used that terminology when we're just so focused and nothing else matters. And then you just said eating is meditative, and it's not like there's judgment on that. It just is what it is. And you're like,
Yes,
well, now that I know that, let's do something else meditative that benefits me.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. 100%, 100%. So that was a pivotal point in my life.
Mm.
And this goes back years and, a while ago. So let's bring us back to the question again, Phil. If you want to refresh my memory, because we're talking a lot, I'm thinking a lot.
You know what? These
Um,
these conversations, it almost doesn't
yeah,
matter, what the
right,
question
right,
was if
right.
we get,
Yeah,
these
yeah,
revelations, yeah.
yeah. I just think also that so my journey hit a point right before COVID. So I had managed. So I've been a spin instructor.
Mhm,
I've been a yoga instructor and always dealt with weight. Always, always. But things got a little heavier for me. Things started kicking in. Um, and I have a little bit of, I have a cardiologist, I have a GI doctor, and I have my regular physical, intern. And about a long time ago, my GI doctor mentioned something to me about having a gastrectomy, a stomach gastrectomy, like shrinking my stomach. And that was a long time ago. Because Alan, if you ever think about this, I know somebody who might be. So go ahead, 8 years or 9 years,
mhm.
and I call him back, and I said, Doctor, I said, my weight is this, and it's COVID, and I know that if I were to get sick, God forbid, I may not survive
Mm,
because of my obesity. 80 pounds, 70, 80 pounds overweight.
sure.
Um, and he said, Alan, yeah, he thinks it's a good idea. He gives me the green light. My primary doctor said, Alan, you've been struggling with your weight a long time
Mhm.
because I think it would help. And my cardiologist, he was all in.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I
Sure.
was so I was so scared to talk to him. And I sat in his office. He said, Alan, with your family history and your struggle, he said, it would be great. He said, I know someone. I had steak with him. We went out for steaks. He had this procedure done. It took me 5 minutes to finish my steak. It took him 25 minutes, almost a half an hour to finish the steak.
Hmm.
He said he enjoyed every single bit of it. And he said it looks amazing. He said, it might have been a colleague of his. So he said, go for it. So I did. It was hard. Philip, it was the surgery itself was a piece of cake, but the work beforehand, I had to show that I lost weight beforehand. They have you go on a 2-week liquid diet to shrink the liver, to shrink
Mm.
fat around the liver, to shrink the liver so they can get to the stomach better. And then then after a while, then you move yourself up, to regular eating over the course of months. It's a biological learning curve again.
Yeah, you have to
Without going to
readapt to
description,
this,
read that
your
right,
stomach.
right, right,
But
right.
before we get there
So
though, what
yeah,
before we get there, so just playing devil's advocate, because I know people think this or when they judge people, they don't know their history or why they did things. It sounds like the pandemic was like the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of your personal health scare or reality or whatever. Something that you knew you wanted to deal with for years, but just hadn't had the impetus quite to take action. And why did you think that you didn't have any other option, or that a more natural approach would have been too risky or take too long given your health was in danger?
okay. I've had also other health history. So in my family, there are other metabolic conditions.
Mm, okay.
I also had heart surgery,
Okay.
um, a while ago, about 15, 16 years ago. Um, so, and I'm in great shape.
Mhm.
And with that background, I think I needed to do something more acutely.
The imminent
And
risk was palpable. You had to take action
yes, yes.
in a
I said
means that got you the
I have
result.
to do
Yeah.
something. Right, but it
Yeah.
wasn't right away. I mean, I
Mhm.
started this process in May, and it took till October. You know what I'm saying? It
Sure.
was a whole
Sure.
process. It's not like I decided and then 2 weeks later I'm
Right.
in.
Right.
It's a process, and working with working with professionals about it, um, really knowing that I have support and
Mhm.
knowing that I have the skills to carry this through, because it's not an easy fix. And I'm going
Yeah.
to tell everyone listening to this, it's very easy to say, oh, he, no, no way, because regain is real. And if anyone who's a bariatric patient views this, they'll say, yes, Alan, regain is real.
Mhm.
It's a matter of, so we regain, obviously, but the question is, and Philip, this is where we come into play. What is the quality of the regain?
Okay.
Is it muscle or is it extra fat? My my bariatric doctor, he has two mantras, maybe three or four, but one of them is protein first. The second one is weight train.
Great. And those are good mantras.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I said to him, I said, listen, I don't want to look, like I'm 10 years older than I am, like I don't want to sag, I don't want to, he said, Alan, the best thing you can do is weight train 3 times a week and cardio. He said, but weight train and eat your protein first.
Had you weight trained up to that point or just the yoga and the spinning and stuff like that?
I had done some weight training, but not as significant. Oh, yes, I've done weight training. Trust me, yes. So in the 1990s, I followed Bill Phillips' Body for
Mhm.
Life program. I weight trained all the way to 2004, 2005, and then I took a little hiatus. Um, and then I became a spin instructor in 2009. So it was more of a cardio type of,
So you were like detrained at the time.
I was, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no, just so
So,
people understand the history, but
right,
also you were, if you don't mind, what was your age at this point
back then,
when you had the surgery and coming out of that?
51? No,
Okay.
oh no, 61. So figure it was, um,
I was just getting a ballpark for
yeah, no, no,
listeners.
no, no,
So yeah, yeah.
61, about 60,
Yeah,
60
yeah.
or 61.
Just so people
Uh,
know that at whatever age you are, you can
yeah, yeah,
manage your
yeah.
health and you can
Yeah,
improve your health. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So it was in my
Yeah.
60s. It was in
Mhm.
my 60s. So actually, I had been lifting weights prior to the pandemic, um, but not as focused and not as dialed in. I did have a trainer. I'm thinking back. I did have a
Sure.
trainer, but it wasn't the 3 day a week um, progressive loading.
Yeah, so okay,
That's
got it. So you may have lifted weights more of as a form of exercise, not necessarily strength training and
yes,
growth.
a
Um,
100%. Yes.
then you start doing it properly. So a lot of things are going to change. So we're getting to a pivot point. You have the surgery, you have this supportive doctor, which is rare. I'm sorry, I had to say that when it comes to lifting weights and um, protein. And it seems like a lot of things started changing at that point because you talked about the story with the chocolate and peanut butter, right? And the emotional eating. So I want to understand how that changed from emotional to mindful, and then also the other things that you do, right? Tracking, planning, listening to your body, all these things.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And coaching. So
And
let's
coaching. Good.
yes,
Thanks for the plug.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
coaching.
Let's go through this. Um, so originally, go ahead, restate that again, Philip, because there are a lot of things in my mind right now.
I'm sorry. Yes. So, what changed after you had the surgery? How did you start to develop um, more beneficial practices for your health?
Okay. Okay. The kitchen. First of all, my kitchen became loaded with healthy proteins. When I can only eat my stomach, I really feel comfortable only eating about 5 to 6 ounces of solid protein right now, pretty much, and maybe a little vegetables and stuff like that, but it's protein first. So I had to maximize the kitchen. fish, ground beef, dark meat chicken, um, eggs, egg whites, flaxseed, pumpkin seeds, all the things
Mhm.
that and it was a buildup. So first it was just cottage cheese and fish, or cottage cheese mixed with eggs or egg whites, when I first started. So it's a progression. So I also don't feel like I want to fill my day with chips, with ice cream, um, even if it's Halo Top. I mean, I don't want to waste my capacity and my macro factor goals and our goals to other foods that have very poor nutritional value.
Mhm. How did that happen though? How did you get to that mindset? I mean, you said
I
you
always,
always ate healthy foods,
I
so I mean,
always,
maybe that
I'm
helps.
going to say,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
always had that mindset. When I
yeah.
was a kid, I loved Earl Bindel's nutrition Bible. I mean, I had a part-time job at the vitamin shop.
But you talked about the
I've
chocolate and
always
peanut
been,
butter. The chocolate and peanut butter. I'm gonna come back to that because you mentioned it. Not that those aren't delicious foods in and of themselves, trust me. But the way you ate it in that emotional state and it was mindless. Like that's what I'm trying to get at. So that the people listening who might be struggling with that understand how can they turn that corner. I'm putting a lot on you here, man.
I would say, no, I would say, first of all, um, it's a matter of choosing. So instead of that, I'll have um, yogurt with berries, or I'll have PB2. I still have my peanut butter. I could just show you what's in that cabinet over there. Okay,
I hear you
and
though.
there
So
is
you're
peanut butter.
yeah,
So
but
I
you're replacing.
replaced it.
Okay,
So I
good.
replaced it. I
All right.
still enjoy my peanut butter, but it's PB2. I mix flaxseed with PB2 with pumpkin seeds and maybe a tablespoon of oatmeal. I put it in a ramekin or a little saucer and
Mhm,
mix it
mhm.
up with a little skim milk, and I have myself a nice treat. You know, so like that to me is a great treat. I don't need the peanut butter and chocolate, and if I want chocolate, I could get dark chocolate,
Sure,
which I have.
sure.
I have dark chocolate, or I could mix powdered cacao and mix it in with
Yeah.
whatever I'm using.
Now
So I
now what
think
about the
it's a
what about the
mindset. It's a mindset.
yeah, and I'm trying to dig one more level because there's the emotional trigger part of it, right? So I totally love that strategy of replacing. I use it all the time as well. Like if you love crunchy things, you can replace them with other crunchy things. But then we also don't want to mindlessly eat those quote unquote healthier snacks. So there's that aspect to it.
I think I work too hard to sabotage myself again.
Mm.
Digging down a little bit.
So you love
It's,
yourself is what's driving you right now, and I mean you always have. It's not, I'm sure, but
but I'm,
like the
but
stakes are high.
the stakes are higher now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll have peanut butter once in a while, and I'll have chocolate, but I won't be mindlessly digging into Haagen-Dazs in my fridge, in my
Cool.
freezer. I'm going to
Cool.
choose something else because I'm working too hard. When I start doing something, it's like, okay, I have macrofactor to be responsible to. I need to log everything. So it keeps me in check. And if I do have something, I have to be accountable for it. But I'm dialed into my weight training program, Philip.
There you go. There you go. You're dialed in. Yes, you're dialing in, and everything is compounding on everything else. Is what I'm hearing from you. It's
Yes.
like this helps this helps this. The way you eat, the way you move, the way you train, the fact you're a bariatric patient, all of those things. Yeah, plus coaching helps. Obviously, that's extrinsic motivation. The community helps. You talk about your family, your loved ones as well helping. You and I have
Yes.
had conversations,
Yes.
so that's a great message for people to understand that it takes one thing, but then it can start to lead to another, and and help you do this.
Like I said, we create a whole ball of wax.
Yeah, there you go.
And if people are visual, think of a Venn diagram of how things. So I had like a 3D Venn diagram moment where it's not just the bubbles like intersecting, but then building upon each other.
Hmm.
So we have different layers of blends, not just a flat blend, but it's layers. So what you described, Philip, just now is so accurate because it's a layering of habits, a layering of intention um, that continues to build upon itself.
Yeah. Yeah, Larry. And another phrase I learned recently is upward spiraling. And that again was from talking to Darlene. It's the same
I
idea
think
from positive psychology. Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
why I thought of it again when I heard that.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So,
Okay. So yeah, go ahead.
wow, wow, I'm feeling like wow, it's pretty intense. Um, I just want also to share that just having a bariatric procedure is not the easy way out. It is
Mm,
a action that leads to further responsibility,
yep.
incredible responsibility. And I own that responsibility. And maybe that's what you're healing, you and,
Yep.
and our listeners today here is this responsibility that I have to my health and to what I've done in my life.
It's a great way to put it.
So
Yeah, like your
that's,
past happened, whether it was because of your choices or not, which we know that some of it is your choices, but that's fine. Now you took responsibility for your future.
right.
Um, so now I'm curious, and this is because we are in a one-on-one coaching relationship as well. We met through Macro Factor since we both use that. We were in the community there. I talk about that app all the time here. People are tired of it by now, but how has the coaching, independent of everything else, helped you? I really am curious on how. Like if we had, I feel like if we hadn't been in a coaching relationship, you still would have been successful. But I want to know what the extra contribution was in leveling up your progress over the last 6 months.
Wow. You've taught me things about myself. You had a vision that I did not see myself. It's like,
Mm,
let's get down to the deeper parts of this onion. Okay. It's not about the technique. It's not about
yeah.
necessarily about the weekly forms I have to fill out.
Mhm.
It's about the results of my weekly assessments with you. It's about our conversation, about your conversation with me. It's about realizing that I don't know everything myself. And my mindset for so long has all been about the scale, the number on the scale. It has to go down. 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 And after a while, man, that's not appropriate.
That's right.
I mean, it is appropriate at given times for sure.
Yeah, at given times. Yep. Mhm.
But right now I'm on maintenance, and I'll say, everyone, you use this phrase, there's magic in that maintenance. I'm telling you, Philip, we've talked about this before. So the magic in maintenance is also dovetailed, juxtaposed to leaning into you as a coach. So the magic of maintenance is not just about my macros, it's about your wisdom, your coaching, your laying a foundation of support for me to be in maintenance and say, wow, man, it's okay. I gained 3 pounds, but I've kept that weight for 5 weeks. And my muscles look great. And my pants still fit. And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe I gained a half a pound of muscle on the Renfo scale. I don't
Mm.
know, whatever.
Mhm.
I mean, that you give that's a grain of salt. You can take that with a grain of salt. But I feel good. I wore a tank top this week, first time in a long time, and I was like, whoa. So that's where the coaching. That's independent. That's where the coaching has done. It made me believe that I have the power inside of me to make progress in a way that I did not know myself.
Mm.
That it took you and your wisdom and your knowledge to say, oh, let's try and do this. And I was petrified. Like you mentioned in your previous podcasts, and that when you go into maintenance, people are anxious about gaining weight. I was there. I was so nervous. I was like, I'm going to eat and I'm going to gain weight and I'm going to end up over this weight and I'm not going to look good. But that didn't happen.
Yep.
So.
That so here's what I'm hearing from you, Alan, because a lot of people think coaches are there to maybe provide information, right? But a lot of folks know what to do. I mean, you're above above average in terms of that knowledge, right? Because you listen to all the podcasts, you read, I mean, you and I go back and forth on the research. You send me articles, all that stuff. That's totally beside the point. It's these other things that you didn't know you had inside you. It's maybe a relief from some of the stress, right? I'm hearing like you're just kind of
Yes.
able to unload
Oh,
on someone else that can support you. And
right,
I'm the kind of guy that it just like I'm not going to get stressed by your stress, right? Because you're not me. I'm not emotionally invested. I'm emotionally invested in your success, but your stress, you could just kind of throw it over the wall, and we'll just get rid of it over
right,
here.
right, right,
It's crazy, you know, like just to think that um, you didn't know what you were fully capable of, and it wasn't that you couldn't lose weight; it was that you couldn't stop losing weight without thinking it would all go off the rails.
right, right.
Yeah.
Another thing that your coaching has helped in general, this whole process, is my mom passed away
Mm,
about, was passed away also in 2021. And I just think that what I'm doing for myself is honoring her as well, because she always wanted me to take care of myself. And she
mm,
was happy when I had the surgery, and she looked at, she said, Alan, you look beautiful. You're doing this. So it's like everything. So you're talking about stress. That's one thing we didn't talk about yet, was the biggest stress in my life, the biggest upset, but also learning. I learned a lot. Um, was when my mom got sick and she passed away. So, with that being said, let's bring you into the picture now. Let's bring your coaching into the picture. So not only, so now I added another leg to the foundation of what I need to do for myself,
mhm.
and I leaned into you with trust, your safeness. You're very safe about what you do, your wisdom. I also think that you also have an amazing capacity for communication and allowing people to become introspective. And I think all those things together, combined with what I had said before, create the unique coaching experience that I've had with you.
Well, thank you, Alan. I don't know what to say because there's always a little bit of imposter syndrome in me too, like we all have
Yeah,
like the idea of wisdom and all that. But one thing I think about talking to you is, you have a background in psychology. I'm not a therapist. I don't have a background in psychology, nor do I purport to do that at all. And sometimes there's a difference in the approach between psychologists and coaches, right? Psychologists often help with
hmm,
the past and healing, and coaches are like, what do we do now going forward? What tools do we use to move ahead? I'm not saying that there's not a Venn diagram of overlap there. Okay, but from my perspective, even when you were talking to me about your mom, one thing I always feel I struggle with is like how to properly respond to that and empathize with people. And everybody struggles with that, right? When others are going through these difficult times, it's like, what do you say? It's a universal human question and a concern. But I always come back to, okay, what does Alan need now from me? And because he's got other things that are going to give him the support, maybe in that personal area. What does he need from me? And what did he hire me for? And what are we doing here? And that was kind of helping you move through it. Not necessarily to process it. That's more of your own thing to manage. And again, I'm not a therapist. It's just how do we move forward? My focus for you is your health, your physical health, which does give help with your emotional health. So how do I help you move forward with that? Right.
right,
So that's where having a coach can definitely help. Um,
right,
yeah, cool.
right. And the ability to lean into the coach. Not every
Mm,
client can lean into a coach. It's kind of like people coming into the spin room and saying, Alan, you're going to kill us today. It's like, no, no, why do I want to kill you? I want to build the skyscraper, not just bring it to the penthouse.
mhm.
So it's like we have to leave our ego at the door. Philip, I want to lose weight. I want to lose 15 pounds in 6 months' time. I want to be 12 to 15 pounds lighter. And but there's a whole picture
Yep.
that I can still stay the same or even gain a little bit, but also have a better body composition. So it's a matter of me also leaving my ego and my directiveness. I'm a very directive person, very,
Sure,
in
sure.
life. And it's like leaving that to the side and saying, okay, Maybe I need to listen to someone else. Maybe I need to listen to a coach. I'm going to try maintenance. Philip might have an idea. And so I did. But it's that openness, it's that breath that we take, that pause to allow things in. If we're always on the go, and if we our cup is always full, if we always have a full vessel, we can't take in, we can't learn.
Mm.
So part of it is emptying the vessel a little bit to bring in.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And a vessel, I know it's a metaphorical vessel, but there is also a literal, like, our day-to-day schedule, our time, all the things that we do vessel as part of that. And you're speaking to me too, Alan. I'm trying to empty that vessel a little bit. Okay.
Right.
So, well, if somebody's listening, they're like, wow, we're getting into a lot of deep stuff here, but also a lot of actionable strategies along the way. What advice would you give to someone just starting their fitness journey? They might be
Wow.
65, they might be 25, they might be 90. I don't know. And they feel overwhelmed, right? There's information, there's misinformation, there's training programs, nutrition plans, coaches, websites, social media, books, podcasts, you name it. Let's take a breath. Where should someone start, in your opinion?
They should start where they are at. There's so much in social media, so much around us that say we should be here. We should be shredded. We should be this. I'm never going to be shredded. you know, I seriously, it's like, I'll look good. Okay.
Absolutely.
Um, I think people need to honor what I'd like to express to people who are just starting out, no matter what age. People might be starting out after a disability, after surgery, after an illness. They might be starting out because they want to lose weight. They may be starting out for so many different reasons. And that's why I'm going to posit this. See where you're at. Invest in a trainer, invest in a coach, someone you can talk to, even if it's just for one session or two sessions. See where you're at, identify your goals, honor where you're at, because it's a step-by-step process. But the only way to go one step at a time is to honor and see what your needs are, where you want to go. And not only that, what your why is, where you what what is creating your why, and the why is powerful. The why is like something that takes you into periods of plateaus. When you're in a
Mm.
plateau and you say, "Oh man, I just want to give up," then why are you doing this? Why did you start? Take a week off, take a diet break, whatever you want to call it. But know that your why is there, and you want to return to it.
Mhm.
So that's what I would say. Honor where you're at. Reach out to someone professional. Write things down. Diary. What's going on? Get an objective opinion, an objective look at what's going on with you at the here and now, and where you want to go and why. What's creating the pivotal point? What's creating this pivot point in you that you want to make a change? Where are you at? And when you close your eyes, what do you envision for yourself? For some people, it might be just be able to walk around the block.
Mhm.
For some people, it might be lifting 10 pounds. For some people, it might be able to walk up and down stairs again. Okay. So for some people, it might be bench pressing, you know, it might be, whatever. For me, it's hanging from a bar and doing chin ups.
There you go.
I look at
Fun
guys,
to
it's
have
like,
those
oh,
micro goals, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I'm making a joke, but it's very serious. Um, so take everything where you're at. Um, you know, um, there was a time when walking up a hill winded me after I had my heart's procedure.
Mm.
It took me a while to walk up. When I used to walk across the street to come home, I live on a hill. I had to walk diagonally instead of straight up the hill
Mm.
because I would get out of breath after the surgery. So I was walking though. Okay. So I had to build myself up. And my cardiologist said, Alan, you have no restrictions. You can get on the spin bike after this time, and you can do this. But my physicality needed to come back to itself.
And you engage in a form of progressive overload by
Yeah.
starting where you're at and then going from there.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
That
Yes.
works with everything in life, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
It's good advice. Cool. All right. So people are going to get out their pen and paper. They're going to reflect on what they want out of life and why, and then start where you're at and go find some resources,
Yes.
professional help, people, podcasts, whatever, find resources. And this is a great resource. Alan's a great resource. We're going to maybe hook you up with his contact info in the show notes. We'll see. But he's in our community either way if you want to join and reach out
Right.
to him.
I'm on Facebook.
Yep.
I don't post a lot, but if you want to reach out to me, send me a message. I'll be glad to respond.
So you know what I'm going to ask next? It's the penultimate question, Alan. Since I know you listen to the
Oh
podcast.
man.
What is one question you wish I had asked, and what is your answer?
Oh, where do I get this desire to learn from? Where do I get? Where do I? What is my impetus behind learning?
Yeah, your
My
curiosity, your
my
passion for learning.
curiosity.
All
Right.
right.
So there's a saying: "Who is wise? One who learns from everyone."
Mm, mm,
So not that I absorb everything unconditionally, because it definitely has to go through a filter at times.
sure.
But I'm always there questioning and learning. Um, and learning and listening to other people who are wise. We surround ourselves with people who um, who have something to offer in terms of their own experience, their own mentorship abilities. So I think when we surround ourselves with people who are wise, who are scholarly, who are wise to the world, I'm not talking about necessarily intellectually, but who are mentors. I mean, that's like a brotherhood. That's like our fellowship of how we learn. So I'm always honoring. So this goes back to my original mantra of positive regard. Okay.
Mm.
So when listen to people, there's a positive regard that I have to what they're explaining. I listen to how they learned, where they're coming from. So I'm an active learner, but I also know that when I learn something, I try and implement it. So we all know, Carl Berryman has the prep work, right? So there's a call to action, and there's a lot of different things that I do. But learning is important, but transferring it into action steps to make an impact. Learning is a change of behavior, an observable change of behavior,
Oh, that's
and
good. That's good. Right? It's not just consuming. It's
that's
changing your
right,
behavior from what you
right,
hear and what you learn.
right,
Yes.
right, right, right. So that's it.
Great.
Who is wise? One who learns from everyone.
Great.
That's my
One
answer.
one who learns from everyone. I'm trying to do that with this podcast, man. Bring on people that I can learn from and the listener can
Yeah,
learn from. So
yeah,
let's take action as well. So you
yes.
definitely gave me personally some things to think about, and I'm sure the listener. I mean, just all the things we covered. So where do you want listeners to reach out to you or learn about you?
They can reach out to me on Facebook. I have an
Okay.
Instagram, um, or perhaps in the community on the Facebook page. If they want
Oh,
to come into the Facebook page, I'm active there, and that would be a great place for them to correspond with me.
all right. Yeah, we'll put the links to the your Facebook profile as well as the Wits and Weights Facebook community where Alan hangs
Right.
out regularly. And man, that was this is awesome. I mean, we got into things that we didn't expect and a lot of
No,
value for the
no.
listener. So man, thanks so much. Thanks for coming.
Oh man, Philip, thank you for inviting me. I hope I was of some help and value to your listeners and and the community that we both are part of. And I wish everybody who's listening all good things,
All
just
good
all good
things.
things, all good things. Yeah.
All good things. And with that, we'll say toodaloo. Thanks, Alan.
Okay.